Hey folks, Dale Davidson here, the VA guy. Glad you're here today. Got something a little unusual here. We're going to be talking about buddy statements and how important are they. And I'm going to define what a buddy statement is in just a few minutes, but let me start off by telling you a little bit about a client of mine. He was active duty in the Army for 12 months and then he was in the reserves for 7 years. He developed asthma because of exposure to cork. Remember, I did a video on chemical exposure a couple of weeks ago, but cork is chemical agent resistant coating. That's what they paint their vehicles with, okay? So my client applied for compensation but was denied, and then we appealed for him. The VA couldn't obtain his C-file, couldn't find his records, and so it was ultimately determined by the VA that they couldn't be located. I guess that was the Great Fire of St. Louis, even though he wasn't in the Army during that period of time. But anyway, they couldn't find his records. So we put together a disability benefits questionnaire and some supplemental information from his private physician, and then we put that in the file. Recall that to establish compensation for a present disability, you've got to show the existence of the disability. You've got to show that your disability was incurred or aggravated while in service. And there's got to be a causal relationship between your disability and your disease, your injury, okay, incurred or aggravated. So that's the nexus part during your service, okay? Nexus is very important. Let's talk about buddy statements. So how do they come about? So the VA says that, look, we've got to give due consideration to all medical records that you submit and any kind of lay statements or lay evidence. These are the buddy statements that I'm talking about in evaluating your claim for service. Now, competent lay evidence, competent buddy statements, is any evidence that does not require the speaker to have a specialized education, training, or experience. So I would be a lay person in this case to say, yeah, my client had asthma because I saw him coughing. That's a lay statement. Whether that's competent or not would be up to the VA. Lay statements are competent or considered competent evidence to establish a diagnosis when the lay person, in this case me, is competent to identify the medical condition. So, yes, I saw my client coughing. Or, yes, I was there when he broke his leg. Clearly it was broken because it was pointing in the opposite direction and he was screaming in pain. That's a competent lay statement. Yes, I saw his legs and they were full of varicose veins. They were big veins and popping out, and so yeah, I can identify those things. I'm not giving a diagnosis, I'm just identifying the medical condition. But recall that any kind of lay statement, buddy statement, has got to support a later diagnosis by a medical professional. We always have to have a medical diagnosis, but my lay statement can support that later medical diagnosis. So once my buddy statements or lay evidence is submitted, then the VA says, yes, this is competent or not, okay? Then they have to determine whether it's credible. Do we believe that Dale saw the veteran with his leg turned backwards when he broke it, okay? So in this case, the veteran contended service connection for asthma due to a service exposure to cork, that chemical resistant paint, okay? He, after service, but during his time as reservist, he got a current medical diagnosis of asthma. So the question is the diagnosis related to the veteran's service? Is that the nexus that the VA is looking for? In this instance, the Veterans Military Occupational Specialty, the MOS, was a motor transport operator. So, he worked in the motor pool. He repaired vehicles, he stripped paint, he painted vehicles, he removed paint with brushes, sandpapers. The repainting was done by sprayers. He was never issued breathing devices or warned of the potential hazards, all that good stuff that rolls into this claim, okay? So the veteran, he reported developing a cough not long after arriving in the motor pool, okay? But he was never diagnosed during service, okay? Not while he was in active service, anyways. So he was later assigned to a decontamination team, but still working in the motor pool, decontaminating vehicles that were exposed to whatever kind of chemical agents, okay? His clinical treatment records show nominal or normal clinical evaluations during his active service. But here's the problem in this case, or was in this case. Remember, there were no records, no service records, okay? So how do you prove nexus when the VA can't find your records? In this case, the veteran had firsthand knowledge and experience, and the veteran himself was competent to testify. But you need more. You need more than just what we would refer to as self-serving testimony. And although his exposure to CARC was not documented in his service treatment records, but he's a reliable, what they refer as a reliable historian of what happened to him and what he was exposed to during his service time. But again, self-serving testimony is not enough. You have to prove causation, okay? You served, and your service caused your exposure. I served in the motor pool. My exposure to CARC caused my condition. That's what this veteran had to prove. But again, there were no records to prove that. So here comes the buddy statement. Friends who have known this veteran for years, they wrote statements that said, look, this guy he played high school football, he was very athletic, he hunts, he fishes, he does all of those things and never had a problem. He played in the band, okay? Now, your friends have noticed that he developed a persistent cough. So he can't play his tuba anymore, can't play flag football with the guys on Sunday afternoons. All of those things have happened because of a condition that he has now developed that he didn't have in high school, but that he claims developed while he was in service. Your friends also go to say, well, this guy was rarely sick and never had any allergies before. You told your friends that you were in the Army and you spent a lot of time removing rust and helping paint vehicles. Your friends just kind of stated that in the buddy statement. And all of that was verifiable. Your friends, in their buddy statement, this veteran's friends, they said, well, based upon what we know about our friend and what he has told us, we think he may have an upper respiratory problem from stripping paint in the Army and painting in the Army. Now, the question comes, is that a medical opinion or is that just a lay statement? Well, in this case, it's just a lay statement because they are giving their observation. They have seen their friend coughing up a storm when they're out to dinner. They've seen the fact that your friend has got to sit on the sidelines now and he can't play sports like he used to because of his asthma. That's a lay opinion. Well, let's don't stop with the friends. Let's talk to your parents, okay? Maybe your parents can provide buddy statements. They would report that, man, you were an active kid all throughout your life. You had no problems. You had no respiratory problems prior to your enlistment in the Army. In a statement that could say, well, when you came home from enlistment and being involved in the motor pool, you started coughing, which is kind of unusual. So that's their observation, a lay statement that is backing up what you are claiming, or what this veteran was claiming, in his claim for disability benefits for asthma related to CARC. Okay? But let's don't stop there at parents, because we're all about belts and spinners. Let's get some more people involved. How about we talked to the uncle, and the uncle said, yeah, I knew this guy, man. You grew up with him, good guy. You know, he never had any respiratory problems, was very healthy, never coughing and all of that kind of stuff, until he came back on his first leave and was coughing a lot. And then we asked him why he was coughing, and he said, well, we were stripping paint and all that other stuff, and painting. Did you wear a respirator? No, they didn't give us a respirator. And so I'm thinking, wow, maybe this paint has really affected my nephew. So he writes it, and in a statement says, well, based upon what I know of my nephew's history, and based upon what he has told me, it's my opinion, lay opinion, that he has an upper respiratory issue that's got to be dealt with. I'm not saying he has asthma because I'm not a doctor. I can't say that, okay? I don't have any medical opinion. It all depends upon where this is coming from. I'm not trying to get a medical opinion. I'm just saying, in my lay opinion, that based upon what I understand to be the history here and what I understand is reported back to me from the veteran, this is what I have personally observed. You don't have to stop it there. I mean, the veteran got his wife to put in a buddy statement. She didn't know the veteran while he's in active service, but now she witnesses that simple chores and sitting in the heat causes him to become short of breath. He can't do long walks. He has to have an inhaler and uses a CPAP machine. So all your friends, your parents, your relatives, and your spouse are all competent and credible to report their observations and conversations with you. It's not an opinion, it's their observations and conversations. So in this case, the VA, even though they couldn't find the records to determine your exposure to CARC paint, your friends, your parents, your relatives, your wife, spouse, can all be reliable historians as to your report of an in-service exposure to CARC. It all comes down to this. Was your asthma caused by the result of your service? And what the VA is saying is, after resolving all reasonable doubt in favor of the veteran. So, tie goes to the runner in sports, in baseball terms, okay? The VA should find service connection for asthma is warranted. Based upon buddy statements, we don't have any records of in-service, but we do have buddy statements backing up what the veteran has said. But we need to go further than just buddy statements, because I said this earlier, but you always need to have a medical diagnosis. So in addition to the buddy statements, we got this veteran to go to his private physician and give an opinion that his asthma was caused by his exposure to CARC. When we got the opinion, the problem with this is that it was only, his opinion was not supported by any facts or data or anything like this. It was just a short and sweet letter. We needed more than that. So we got another opinion, and we got another doctor to say, yes, based upon what the veteran has told me and his exposure to CARC, and based upon reviewing all of his medical records, it is my opinion that it's more likely than not that his asthma is caused by his exposure to CARC. Luckily, this doctor knew what else we needed, and so the doctor also went out and did his own research and says, and by the way, I looked at all of this different research, some of it by the VA, some of it by the National Institutes of Health, all of these studies and reports. I've taken all that into consideration, and guess what? My conclusion is not only based upon what I've heard and observed when examining the veteran, but all of these different reports as to the toxicity of CARC and what it does and what it can cause the veteran. Buddy statements are good. Always have buddy statements if you can get them, okay? But you need to have a medical opinion too. Your buddy statements are going to support the medical opinion, and remember that the VA is more likely than not to give more weight to your doctor's opinion if it is supported by facts, data, studies, those kinds of things. So in this case, we argued that yes, all of these layperson reports, these buddy statements are credible, but they bolstered not only the first medical opinion, it was a good opinion, but it was lacking because that second opinion went further than I ever imagined. And he said, look, I also, I looked at my observations and talking to the veteran, but I also looked at all of these different studies and determined that based upon all the evidence that I have, all these studies, all these reports, that yes, this veteran's asthma was caused by his exposure to CARC while in service. That's the nexus we were looking for. Moral of the story in this instance: when there's a approximate balance of positive and negative evidence regarding any issue regarding your claim, the VA is going to give you, the veteran, the benefit of the doubt. So again, tie goes to the runner. But don't just rely on buddy statements. They're good. You need them, but don't discount or think that the buddy statements don't matter, because they do. But just know that the more evidence we can provide the VA on your behalf, medical opinions that are supported by facts, studies, reports, those kinds of things, will lead to a more, hopefully a successful result. Hey folks, thank you for watching. We appreciate you as always. Hey, check out this video on chemical exposure while you were in service. It gives you a lot more information. And until next time, you have a blessed day.